think first, Gates is doing a good job. You can imagine what just happened, that the Army went into a defensive crouch, and some secretaries of defense, normally the previous one, may have gone along with that defensive crouch, but Gates seems impatient with it, and he seems to be firing people left and right. I saw him out on 395 firing people as they drove by. No, so it is it is a sign of new leadership. The deeper question of what causes it, which Mark Benjamin and others were talking about, and what Dana Priest was talking about, it seems to me there are a couple things that one can surmise. One is the accounting system of this government is totally screwed up on this, as in so many other things. Priest was talking about the supplemental budget not going in the real budget. We have so many gimmicks, it becomes hard to normally appreciate where the money's going, how accountable it is. The Veterans Affairs has gotten a decent amount of money, 77% increase, as they'll quickly tell you. But how it's being accounted for, because it's all done with tricks and mirrors for budgetary reasons, it fuzzies up everything. And the second thing, which I think underlies a lot of this, is that when they realized they were going to have a much bigger war on their hands than they thought, I don't think anybody sat back and said, what are the downstream effects of this going to be? And the outpatient and the brain injuries and all that stuff was a downstream effect of a surprisingly big war.
Mark, some people have suggested that Bob Gates has now done away with no-fault government for a while in the United States. Is it that big a deal, do you think, what Gates has done?
I give him credit. I mean, he has stepped up and said, the buck does stop here, and I want answers. And one of the people that did get fired, General Waitman, I thought, gave us a view of what happened here. We're talking about troops, wounded warriors, who are going up to 18 months in some cases in this limbo-like status that David's described before they're determined whether, in fact, they can return to duty or they're going to be discharged, and when they're discharged, what kind of support and subsidy they will receive. And he explained one of the reasons why this case said, in the past, many of these people would have just been discharged, but they can't discharge them because they don't have enough troops. It's that simple. They don't have enough troops. They're having trouble, Jim, right now. They're having waivers on criminal records, on academic non-achievement to get people into the military. They had to keep these people in the military. I mean, that's one of the, in addition to the bureaucratic maze that Davis described and incompetence, there was an imperative here to keep people in uniform, not to let them return to civilian life. That's an amazing statement about where we are as people. General Waitman put it very bluntly. He said, this is the longest war we have fought in this country without a draft. And it's true. And since the Revolutionary War, and it's it's a long, long time.
David, let's not forget, Dana Priest brought it up as well, the Veterans Affairs. Secretary Nicholson was on this program, and this is after the Bob Woodruff, the ABC documentary talking about serious brain injuries, and there's some problems there that need to be addressed.
Right, people with not obvious apparent injuries leading horrible lives because of what's happened to them. One of the things that strikes me is words like foobar and snafu occur in wartime because unexpected things happen. Big bureaucracies which are required to fight wars don't know how to deal with them, and you get these phenomenal errors. We got them in World War II, we've had them in this war, but you need a leadership that is always on the lookout for the snafus. And I'm not sure we've had that kind of dynamic leadership that's always on the lookout. As Gates said, it was a leadership problem.
That's what Gates said. Gates said this was not a competency problem so much as a leadership problem. So the people who were there know how to do their jobs, and they do them well.
It is a leadership problem, Jim, but I'd also add that this is a war unlike any war we've ever been through. 1/3 of 1% of Americans, those in uniform and their families, are the only ones making any sacrifice, the only ones suffering. The rest of us have been patriotically asked to take tax cuts, series of tax cuts, to put a magnet, support our troops magnet on the back of an SUV and kind of say, well, we're supporting our troops. And the reality is all of the sacrifice, all of the suffering being borne by them.
But wouldn't then it follow, Mark, that if that's the case, a small number of people are doing the sacrifice, then a small number of people should get the attention for the damage being done to them.
Absolutely they should. But I mean, it goes without saying. They don't have They don't have any access, the kind of access that political action committees around town that other interests have. I mean, it's that point.
Yeah.
Well, I don't quite see it quite as in the class conflict. Well, I think war has unexpected things. This is an unexpected war, and then you get weird things that happen. For example, one of the good things that's happened in this war, people, if you survive the first couple minutes after something happens to you in Iraq, apparently you generally survive. But so we have fewer deaths, but more injuries. And because we're actually so good at battlefield medicine, we have these more injuries that are overbearing the system. And so the system doesn't adapt to those sorts of changes. And so there's a whole series of complexities that the system as a bureaucracy is just not going to adapt to. So that's why you do need a back-breaking leadership that's constantly asking what is unexpected, where are we messing up, and when we mess up, which is always going to happen, how do we fix it? And that's what Gates finally seems to be offering.
Gates is, but you know, if you accept the premise, David, that war demands equality of sacrifice, if you accept that, which is an American value up until this war, okay, and you go to any college campus, and I challenge you, next time you ask, who here is for all volunteer service? All the hands go up. Who's going to volunteer? No hands go up. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, you tell me it isn't class. Yeah. It's class.
Well, I'm not disputing your larger point that we should have had a broader sacrifice, and that the president, once we were going to war, should have said, we got to change. No, I'm not disputing you on that. I'm not sure it's the most germane thing to this particular problem.
It gives everybody then a sense that they're in it. I mean, this war, this has been a segregated war. This has been a segregated war in the sense that the people who are fighting it are the only ones.
What about the continuing thing that both the reporters said, that this news didn't just come boom, you know, out of the sky here in the last 2 or 3 weeks. It's been reported on a consistent basis within the military and even within some elements of the press, and nobody cared.
Right.